Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson. Let's begin. A spreadsheet is a powerful tool that allows us to organize data and perform calculations quickly and accurately. In schools, businesses, and many organizations, spreadsheets are used to calculate marks, sales, expenses, profits, and many other types of data. Instead of calculating everything manually, we can use formulas and functions to let the spreadsheet to do the work for us. In this lesson, we will learn how to use formulas and common spreadsheet functions such as sum, average, count, counter, max, and min. We will also learn how cell references are used in calculations and how to perform basic spreadsheet calculations accurately. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to create simple formulas and use functions to analyze data in a spreadsheet. Let's start it. Before we learn how to use formulas and functions, let's first understand how data is organized in a worksheet. A worksheet is made up of rows and columns. Columns run vertically and are identified by letters such as A, B, and so on. Rows are horizontally and are identified by numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. When a row and column intersect, they form a cell. When a row and a column intersect, they form a cell. In this example, the highlighted cell is located in a column A and row 1. Therefore, its cell references is A1. A cell reference is simply the address of a cell in a worksheet. Notice the cell reference is formed by combining the column letter and the row number. For example, A1 means column A and row 1. Understanding cell references is very important because formulas and functions use cell references to perform calculations. Now that we know what rows, columns, cells, and cell references are, let's practice identify cell references in a worksheet. Let's practice identify cell references using a simple table. Remember, a cell reference is formed by combining the column letter and the row number. Let's start with the word name. Can you identify its cell reference? The word name is located in column A and row 1. Therefore, its cell reference is A1. Now, let's look at the value 5. The value 5 is located in column B and row 2. So, its cell reference is B2. What about the value 1000? Since it is located in column C and row 2, its cell reference is C2. As you can see, identifying cell reference is very simple. We just combine the column letter with the row number. Now, let's test our understanding with a quick question. What is the cell reference of the value 3? The answer is B3 because the value 3 is located in column B and row 3. Now that we know how to identify cell references, let's learn how to use them in formulas to perform calculations. Let's learn about formulas. A formula is expression used to perform calculations in spreadsheet. A formula is expression used to perform calculations in a spreadsheet. One important thing to remember is that every formula begins with an equal sign. That's very important to remember. The equal sign tells the spreadsheet that a calculations need to be performed. Without the equal sign, the spreadsheet will treat the entry as ordinary text. Let's look at some examples. The formula equals 10 plus 5 give us 15. The formula equals 20 minus 8 give us 12. Can we also multiply and divide using formulas? As you can see, formulas help us perform calculations very accurately and quickly. In the next slide, we will learn about the arithmetic operators used in spreadsheet formulas. Now that we know what a formula is, let's look at the operators used to create formulas. An operator is a symbol that tells the spreadsheet what type of calculation to perform. The plus sign is used for addition. The minus sign is used for subtraction. The asterisk is used for multiplication. And the forward slash is used for division. These operators help us perform the different calculations in a spreadsheet. Let's see how cell references can be used in a formula. In this example, cell A2 contains the quantity and cell B2 contains the price. To calculate the total, we need to multiply the quantity by the price. Therefore, the formula is equals A2 multiplied by B2. Now that we know how to create formulas using cell references, let's learn about functions which make calculations even faster when working with large amounts of data. We have seen how formulas can be used to perform calculation in spreadsheet. In our example, we created the formula ourselves by typing equals A2 multiplied by B2. This works well for simple calculations involving a few cells. However, when working with large amount of data, creating formulas one by one can take a lot of time. Fortunately, spreadsheets provide built-in formulas known as functions. Functions help us perform calculations quickly and efficiently without having to write long formulas ourselves. Let's begin by understanding what a function is. Before we start using functions, it is important to understand cell ranges. A cell range is a group of cells selected together. Let's look at the first example. B2 colon B6 means all the cells from B2 up to B6 are included in the selections. Notice that these cells are next to each other, forming one continuous range. Similarly, A1 colon A5 means all the cells from A1 up to A5. Whenever we want to select cells that are connected or continuous, we use a colon. For example, B2 colon B6. Now, let's look at a comma. A comma is used when we want to select specific cells that are not next to each other. For example, B2, comma B4, comma B6 means we are selecting only those three cells. The cells in between are not included. Therefore, remember that colon is used for continuous range of cells, while a comma is used to select separate cells or ranges. Understanding cell ranges is important because functions such as sum, average, count, max, and min use cell ranges when performing calculations. Now that we understand how cell ranges work, let's see how they are used in the sum functions to add numbers together automatically. Let's begin with the sum functions. The sum functions is used to add numbers together automatically. In this example, we want to calculate the total scores of all students. First, we identify where the scores are located. We can see that the scores are used in column B from cell B2 up to cell B6. Since we want to add all these scores together, we use the sum functions. The formula is equals sum open brackets B2 colon B6 close bracket. Notice that we use a colon because the cells form one continuous range. This formula tell us the spreadsheet to add all values from B2 up to B6 automatically. Therefore, whenever you want to add a group of numbers in spreadsheet, you can use the sum functions. Now let's learn about max functions. The max function is used to find the highest value in a group of numbers. In this example, we want to find the highest score in the class. First, we identify where the scores are located. We can see that the scores are in column B, from cell B2 up to cell B6. Since we are looking for the highest value, we use the max functions. We then select the range B2 to B6. Therefore, the formula is equals max open bracket B2 colon B6 close bracket. Notice that we use a colon because the scores are in a continuous range of cells. This formula tells the spreadsheet to look through all the values from B2 to B6 and return the highest one. Therefore, whenever you want to find the highest value in a range of cells, you can use the max functions. Now let's learn about the min functions. The min functions is used to find the lowest value in a range of cells. In this example, we want to find the lowest score in the class. The scores are located in column B from cell B2 up to cell B6. Since we are looking for the lowest value, we use the min functions. Therefore, the formula is equals min, open bracket, B2, colon, B6, close bracket. This formula tells the spreadsheet to examine all the values in the ranges B2 to B6 and return the smallest value. Whenever you want to find the lowest value in a range of cells, use the min functions. Now let's learn about the average function. The average function is used to calculate the average of a group of numbers. In this example, we want to find the average score of all students. First, we identify where the scores are located. We can see that the scores are in column B from cell B2 up to cell B6. Since we want to calculate the average of these scores, we use the average functions. Therefore, the formula is equals average, open brackets, B2 colon B6, close brackets. Notice that we use a colon because the scores are in continuous range of cells. This formula tells the spreadsheet to calculate the average of all values from B2 to B6. Wherever you want to find the average of a group of numbers, you can use the average functions. Now, let's learn about the count functions. The count functions is used to count the number of cells that contain numeric values. In this example, we want to count how many scores have been entered. The scores are located in column B from cell B2 up to cell B6. Since we want to count the numeric values in this range, we use the count functions. Therefore, the formula is equals count, open bracket, B2, colon, B6, close bracket. Notice that we use a colon because the cells form a continuous range. This formula tells the spreadsheet to count all cells contain numbers from B2 to B6. Whenever you want to count numeric values in a range of cells, use the count function. The count function counts only numbers, but what if we want to count cells that contain text, numbers, or any other data? In that case, we use the COUNTA function. Let's look at the COUNTA functions next. Unlike the count function, COUNTA can count text, numbers, dates, and other types of data. In this example, we want to count the number of student names entered. The names are located in column A from cell A2 up to cell A6. Since we want to count all non-empty cells in this range, we use counter function. Therefore, the formula is equals counter, open brackets, A2 colon A6 close bracket. Notice that we use a colon because the cells form a continuous range. This formula tells the spreadsheet to count all non-empty cells from A2 to A6. Wherever you want to count cells that contain any type of data, use the counter function. In this lesson, we learned how to write formulas using 6 common spreadsheet functions. Before we end this lesson, let's test our understanding. Look at the spreadsheet and try to write the formula for each question. Once you have finished, compare your answers with the formulas we learned in this lesson.